Hello, everybody. We have our lesson ready. It's about video and promo. So, why video and promo? First of all, video is literally everywhere nowadays, and the time of photos even is passing away when video industry has arrived. Starting from making promos, we're going to talk about how to create the video from shooting all the way up to editing it, and then from editing, how to promote it and how to create your own brand. Moving from that, after we learn the basics in making promos, we're going to go to strategies for cinematic movie making. And in that phase, in the second training, that's going to be the next week, we're going to be learning about how to make all these basic steps that we learn in shooting, editing, and performing the promo steps, how we can make them a higher level and how we can make them more cinematic. So why cinematic? Because it's something that we can do easily nowadays with all the technology, with all the access that we have. And how to do this is going to be via editing and shooting, the steps that we have to take while shooting and the steps that we have to take after shooting and editing process. And after this, in the third training, we're going to take preparing a portfolio where you can start build your online or digital gallery. Nowadays, portfolio is more important than CVs, especially in visual industry, where you have your own drawings, let's say, photos, videos. Having them all sorted in one portfolio is literally who you are and what you can do. And this is the first place where people are going to take a step to it and they're going to evaluate you based on your work. So preparing a portfolio, and then from there, not only a normal portfolio, we're going to make it designed well and visually appealing. So starting from here, we can talk about video concept and the video market. Video market, and as of 2021, an average person is predicted to spend 100 minutes every day watching online videos. So if we are having this amount of exposure daily on video content, why not participate and be in it? So we know that the demand is really high, and the amount of video campaigns when people promote themselves is expected to grow from 10.18 billion USD in 2019 up to $12.66 billion in 2024. From here, we can talk about the promotional videos. In promotional market, there's two types. There's always the organic way and inorganic. When we say organic about promotional market, it means already optimized. This is where the algorithms and the technology promote you for free just because people are interacting as well with you. And the inorganic way is when you actually use financial resources to pay and get an ad, and in that way you get to a faster results and more exposure, and you can specify the niches and the communities that you want to be in. So a lot of people use organic promotional stuff where they just have more and more content over the time and they get it for free and they get the exposure that they want. The other way is just a faster and more efficient way when it comes to specifying all the details that you want to get. A story could be literally like an investment or a really important element. If it doesn't have enough exposure or if it doesn't have outreach, your story stays private. And if it's private, it can't progress that much because we're humans. We have to interact with each other. And that's why it's really necessary. Second of all, there comes the collaboration opportunities. Once you start exposing yourself, there is maybe so many people or communities that share kind of similar stuff with you and they want to collaborate with you. That collaboration opportunities might come in and actually change a life. Taking an example, Mustafa had an chance earlier while using a promotional market, and it was organic and without intention, and going through that experience and what opportunities it brought him, it was really interesting to share. And I really encourage you to join in and give us an example what
Yeah,
collaborations we could have and what
yeah,
happens.
yeah. It's actually very interesting because you don't expect these things. It's about creating content and putting it out there. I personally like to teach something when I learn it because it means that if I can teach it, I probably understand it well. So I wrote this technical article about this topic, and because I wanted to learn it, and I just published it, and People liked it, and it helped a lot of people. So naturally, it had a lot of organic traffic, and that was 2 years ago. And like until now, I still get emails being like, "Hey, we saw your article. We loved it. We were wondering if you want to collaborate and like write something for our blog." Yeah, it shapes who you are, and it just creates opportunities for you.
Also, one of the benefits, it creates differentiation, and this is really, really important thing. I have seen so many people that have really unique stories. They have really unique lives and really unique skills that it just would be amazing if it's only out there, because people want to see this differentiations and they want to see this uniqueness, because this is what we try to come up with as humans. We always try to create something new. Yet they don't use the opportunity of today's internet and today's speed to actually reach out. And if they do, that differentiation between societies and between individuals will just create deeper knowledge about so many fields. Also attracts financial investments. So let's say your story is a product. You study robotics, let's say. I've seen a guy who teaches robotics in Syria, although it's really hard environment. Imagine you're in a war zone, but yet you want to explore robotics and you're teaching it in a center for children. The amount of students that might come will make it overwhelming amount of expenses. And this person just share his story on Facebook. He take pictures, daily activities that they're doing. They start with one robot and he says it's enough, he's a university student at the same time. So he takes this one example and he start to practice on it and teach depending on this one robot to all the children that he had at the course. He started to gain attention and attraction, and people really loved what he's doing. Like, he's putting everything he can do from his own money and with his own limitations. But when people actually saw this and saw the benefit of it and what he is actually trying to do in an environment like that, it brought him a lot of support, and that support just make his project bigger and bigger. Now, moving back to videos, there are a lot of niches. I've listed them shortly in this way, where they belong to social videos that has YouTube, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, wherever we're hearing about lately. Each one of them has its own unique crowd or traffic, let's say. And one of those we know as Happy Lame or Lame. With only one move, he was able to really reach the entire planet with his content without even saying any word. You would never ever imagine that you have an opportunity of something great or something has a really huge potential until you put it out there. Second type of videos is interviews and commercial. A lot of people have started their own commercial. Documentation falls into everything that hasn't been explored or that has really unique value that also haven't been discussed yet. And whenever we have those stories or those unique events, we can just document them. An example for this is For Sama. Now, this is a movie that started all the way in Aleppo and it took 3 years. The person you see here is the mother of Sama, and Sama is the girl. So they used to work in a hospital. The hospital and the whole area got sieged, and they stayed under the siege for 3 years. And she was documenting everything that's happening with her, starting from her own mobile phone and taking this mobile phone and mobile shots. She saved all of them. After she went to Europe, someone recommended her, like, you already documented all this. Media wasn't covering this enough, and nobody was covering this enough, and you're an individual that had an entire experience and you have it all on your phone. Let's do a movie of it. And they did a documentary movie from this. For Sama had a huge hit. Just in the past 2 years, the nominations and the Oscars they had and the awards they had, it really exceeded almost 50 awards just from this one movie that was shot via phone. And streaming and live, you have all heard about it, I guess. Now gaming industry also explodes with streamers who had literally no hope of being anything that would help them into building a future, and now it becomes one of the most known and famous and reputable resources for gamers, where they actually do streamings or live videos. They get paid. using it, where they can slowly start build reputation while everybody is watching. They get rankings, and now even each country started to have their own national team. And there is, of course, gradual and progressive. That's how I'd like to describe it, where you can build up with a momentum into something. Example, how-to videos. We see them everywhere. We probably have them all the time. How to do this, how to do that. Moving forward, let's talk about how to start. How can I invest my time into starting doing something? There is a couple methods. First of all, you have to identify yourself. This is something that people really struggle. Identifying who they are. Are they a storyteller? Are they artists, project owners, travelers, reporters, educators, athletes? There's so many people. And what we also miss after identifying who we are, we miss the value of what we do. We miss the value. Am I good enough? Is this just going to make any impact? Is this going to be any helpful? Once you start taking action and doing what you must do, then the value recognition comes and you start to understand what you have to do to even embrace this value and improve it. After this, setting the content plan for anyone who want to go into this road and start building their own name and starting building their own niche, they have to create a content plan and target the benefits for the future progress and expanding limitations of what they're doing. An example for this, let's say I'm a writer. What would I be doing to bring some exposure, improve myself, get some traffic, and start develop my skills? I would have take a blog and start writing there, getting online. That's the most important thing. After I'm online, I'm going to be doing the same thing anyways. Why not doing it publicly where I can have brainstorming opportunity with the entire planet and whoever is interested in this niche? It's the same thing. Instead of doing it offline, do it online. Just maybe taking 5 or 10 minutes more, or a video or an experiment. Those things are unbelievably important once you have a chance to share them to see what they will be returning to you. Coming to the technicalities, practical stuff of how to, let's say, we come to the video essentials, how to shoot a video. Now, everyone can shoot a video, but not every shooting video is exactly practical to the purpose that we want to perform or obtain. So what we need, first of all, is a camera. What is a camera? What could be a camera for us? This could be a DSLR, where we know as a camera on the left side, and a phone. Now, what's the differences? The differences is they're just both one manual and one automatic. A mobile phone using automatic systems where it just takes the options and settings it wants and it just goes for it. This is just a press of a button. But a DSLR is when you build up more experience into identifying light, focus, focal length, let's say, more stuff that you can take the frame you want to take or the video you want to take exactly how you want it to be looking like, unlike the phone where it decides for yourself. So aspects, coming to video aspects, there is two, horizontal and vertical. Can you obtain both of them in both options? Yes, you can. You can take a phone and use it horizontally or use it vertically and just obtain that aspect. And the same goes for DSLR also. You can just turn it that way and get a vertical aspect video. What's the uses of those aspects? So I like to refer it to time. Whenever we have something short, it means that we want to go with vertical kind of video. And that lays under the social category, where we can see a lot of stories of people and reels, maybe Instagram content that goes vertical, which is short, 15 to 30 seconds most of the time. But whenever we want to see in-depth content or we want to do something that's more specified, you directly imagine it as a horizontal video. And what comes to mind, first of all, probably something like YouTube, where it's shot on a DSLR. But here's the thing, you can do it even on a phone and still just decide that you want to take this aspect, and that gives the shape of your video, whether it's going to be short or long, and what people would expect from it when they see it instantly. So as a result, there is always this debate There's always this conflict. What is better? What is easier? What is more effective? Nothing is better and nothing is more effective as long as you take action. Nowadays, with all this technology, a mobile phone is unbelievably capable into producing something with one click and this size into something that already a professional camera producing. We always see this iPhones coming up, 11, 12 Pro Max S, I don't know, all these names and labels. And looking at what they're doing, it's incredible. And now we started also to see the phones where you can, I don't know, 5 cameras behind, 3 cameras, 4 cameras, so many lenses. And basically it started to serve as a camera instead of a phone recently. And that might come to a really small price that would allow us to go into this field instantly just with what we have to call people.
Interestingly, the new iPhone
Yeah.
coming soon was like only promoted to be basically a camera and the phone. That's the only difference from the previous generation. And it
Yeah.
made everyone, and they made this like crazy, crazy looking cinematic movie, like a trailer, like 7 minutes, I think. And
Yeah.
it made everyone think like eventually everything is going to be done by a phone. Like nowadays, there is an international mobile film festival. They push people to make films with a phone, and you already have the skills of being a mobile filmmaker. It would be really interesting. But going back on the video aspects, I wanted to comment on that before you move on.
Yeah.
When you talked about it, it made me think the difference between the horizontal and the vertical video, and that the vertical sounds more like social and like casual. And I think
Yeah.
it's one of the reasons why like companies like Snapchat and then Instagram and then literally everyone else decided to go with vertical videos and one kind of the social media war of being of capitalizing on like 10 seconds 1 minute vertical videos. It's because of that, like people feel more comfortable watching something like YouTube feels like you have to sit and watch YouTube.
Yeah.
Everything else is like, oh, I'll just watch it on the go. And I started noticing even like big news companies, well, news channels, making whole like 5 to 7 minutes documentaries on like vertical on your phone that you can just watch on the go. I thought it was awesome. It's something.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's a new media. Now even the media channels or like the famous newspapers, now they have their own social interaction where they use it in a vertical way quickly. A presenter who just give the presentation, 30-second news, and they go. It's the time of speed, Nobody has time to sit again and like waste 20, 30 minutes on just watching what's going on in news today in detail. Just 5 second, 5 second, you just explore the entire planet into 5 second each for each continent. And you literally learn everything about it and just move on and do whatever you have
You
to
eventually
do.
end up spending 6 hours watching 5 second videos, but you still feel more comfortable doing that than watching one YouTube videos of 10 minutes, one YouTube video of 10 minutes.
Absolutely. Yeah. So moving from the basic equipment, which is a camera, we come to lighting. And I like to split it into 2 ways. There is artificial and there is natural. So what we talk about natural light, first thing that might come to mind is a window. A window is the best natural light source ever that we can obtain. Imagining that we're having a position where we're sitting, just positioning a window on our right side is the most common and easiest way to have a natural light that would eventually even look cinematic. And we're going to talk about this in depth later on, but this is using natural light. All what you have to do is positioning. Same goes for artificial light. This is when we have a set and more in-depth equipment, like 3 system color, but one here like on 45 degrees, 3 kind of artificial lights where we create something that looks like natural. So positioning kind of plays the main role. I wanted to highlight this shot also from The Revenant movie, if you've ever seen it. This movie was a cinematic Hollywood movie, but they decided that for this shot, they want to go as realistic as possible, and they did not use any lights. They actually took candles and they used the candles to illuminate the scene and make something cinematic with the simple light of those candles. Whereas we see below, this is the splitting of brightness and darkness, like shadows and highlights. And this comes into artificial lighting, where we have four layers. First layer is a bright color, and then a dark color in the background, and then the bright on half of the face, dark on the other, and bright again in the background. This is called color contrasting or light contrasting. Without this contrast, you wouldn't see details or a cinematic shot. So always taking any shot, we might be taking a selfie, so why not looking beautiful in that selfie, you know? What way to do this is to emphasize shadows or darkness or contrasts. So we have a light source. It's really good just to show the other side where we have the shadows. We had the contrast, we're good to go. So this is the importance of shadow, just to give contrast, to give more details and dimensions. Now, a little bit more in depth, there comes a concept called the fill concept. So the fill concept, if we can see in this photo below, even in the darkest areas, even in the shadows, there is a light reflection, which is called fill. So imagining that we're sitting here, we have a light source from our right side. It naturally creates a shadow. But if I have a wall on the left side, the reflection of the light from that wall would go back to the shadows and create a little bit of light fill in that shadows. How I see light, I see it as everything. If there is no light, there's literally no video. Video is just the concept of capturing light photons frame by frame into creating some image. It's just like photography. And this is why it's important, because you make your scene look exactly how your lighting is. This section will be discussed in strategies more in depth, especially when we come to the cinematic training. And you will find out that lighting came from painting. That was even interesting for me. We learned how to do lighting systems, and in cinema especially, from people like Da Vinci and Picasso, where they used lighting in their drawings, in their paintings, and illuminating and making shadows and fills. So we created all that different various types of lights, especially when you go to the artificial field. Moving from there, we have our lights, we have our camera, we're missing our frame. So what are the basic framings? There are three. In total, the more in depth we go, there's about 9 kind of framings, but here are the most important ones. First of all, we have landscape. So why would I shoot an image or a photo or a video this large or this wide? The reason is to give, there's philosophy between each frame or behind each frame. I want to show the environment or what this person is doing. How is his environment? I want you to recognize him in the beginning and know him from his environment. So I give you a landscape. And the more you are familiar to what's surrounding this person, the more you're familiar to it. So if you're doing a video, there's always the first time you want to go into the video about someone shooting a video, you want to go landscape, showing what's surrounding them, making the viewer getting to recognize them from their environment. And then we have the medium shots, which is MS here. A medium shot still emphasizes a little bit about the shot, but also give us the feeling of what is the reaction of a person in that shot. How are they thinking, or what they're looking at, or what's on their mind. So that's why medium shots are used, and we also use them in portraits a lot. After that, we come to the close-ups or close shots. Capturing that mimics of a mouth or an eye movement is just powerful as seeing a landscape where you're getting to recognize an environment. This is where you get to recognize the soul or recognize the interior of the person, what he's really feeling, not what he's really thinking. And those close-ups can go up really extreme. Moving on for more professional, they could be this close-up, showing one eye or like one fine detail of a ring, a finger movement on a paper. and so on and so forth. If you want to, let's say, do an Instagram story next time, and let's say you take 3 pictures, why not trying to take them into landscape mode and a medium shot and close up? You'd realize that you have totally covered the philosophy of what you're trying to shoot or the entire content of what you're trying to shoot. You would make the viewers have a full exposure about what you're showing. Moving on from framing, we have audio recording. This is what everybody misses or doesn't give it its value. Audio is literally 50% of a video. I always tell my clients this. If you have a video, 50% of it is audio. Just because you don't see it, it doesn't mean it's not there. Audio is always there, just like how it supplements a video. Nowadays, luckily, it's really accessible to have a good audio, and there's a lot of options. One of them is sitting in our pockets, which is a phone. A phone could be a really good microphone. I have been into situations where I'm shooting a movie, losing battery and electricity, and there's no other way but using my own cell phone. And moving forward, we have this option on the left. It's called lavalier. This is used for both cameras and phones. We know it as we see it on people's necks, where they have it. It's called a condenser mic, where it takes all sorts of audio, including noise, unfortunately. But you can connect it to anything. And the prices of those microphones are incredibly cheap that everybody can access to. That's the beauty about it. So that was the equipment. Those are the basic equipments. The positioning, if you want to have your audio really well, you have to remember to position it close to the mouth. The reason is it eliminates most of the noise when you have this close range, and it gives full depth and detail into your voice. The closer, the better. And what are audio levels? If you've seen anytime those levels where you're recording something and the lines are moving to showing what level you're in, the best audio level is -9 until -15 decibels. Background noise, it's something you can suppress either by the production phase where you're like shooting something, by being close, as we said, and sticking to the levels as much as you can, or you can eliminate it in editing process. And this is also something that's becoming easier and easier with time, like a one click.
Is it at all possible to, if you use another phone to record the sound and then another phone to film, is it possible to make the sound like good enough during editing, or does the mic itself have to be in good quality, like be able to like do editing on them? You know what I mean?
Absolutely, yeah. I've tried it myself. I actually had to try. I was forced to do this because I ran out of electricity when I was shooting. And so you have this audio, you just replace your video and you take your audio file and just replace it under it. Just sync, look that the sound wouldn't go in front or behind the visual, and you're good to go. It will match completely, just like if it's one device. So it's doable, yeah. Moving forward, now we know how to basically shoot a video, let's say, how to use a camera, lighting, and how to frame our shots and how to record our audio. Moving from this comes the video editing. Now, this is the scary part for a lot of people. Now it's even possible on a phone. Again, I was shocked about this. How can we edit? Basically, one of the ways of editing is using the camera. That way is called one take. If you take a shot that starts and ends perfectly from the content you want to cover, this is called a one take video editing, where you just don't need to edit at all because you've already edited it while shooting it. And same goes for camera poses. This is also considered an editing way. How? A lot of people don't have access, don't have time for editing process or anything. Whenever you start shooting, you have the option of posing, and using that option to reposition your angle and reposition yourself into different mediums and like different framings, you've basically edited it, but while shooting it without needing to anything, by just resuming what you have posed in previously. And it would never come to my mind until I seen one person actually doing it this way, instead of going and taking the video and cutting it into post-production or into video editing process. Now, the full edit is when you take the video that you took with all its goods and bad, with all its flaws, and cut wherever you want to skip and making it into one video that has many angles, maybe many. And for this, we use those applications. I gave those examples for mobile and computer because they're free and they're so good. For mobile, if you have Android or Apple, you can use an app called Filmora Go. I'm gonna show you in a bit how I used it, probably in like less than a minute, to edit some video real quick, and it works incredibly easy. Same goes for iMovie. iMovie is actually both on mobile and computer, but it's for Apple company, where you can, it's also a basic video editing app. You can do really a lot with it. Depends on what you're having as a story or what you're thinking about doing. The more professional you want to be, the more you go towards PC and editing on a computer. An example for this, an app for this, which I've recently started shifting to it and I really enjoyed it, is DaVinci Resolve. This is a company that produces cinema cameras. Like they are in the cinema industry, but because most of the apps that do video editing out there are paid and really expensive, they decided, you know what, we're gonna go the opposite way. We're gonna give the same quality, but we're gonna give it for free. If you have a story, whatever it is, how to order it, starting from whatever brings exposure to the story, as we mentioned in the framing section, where we have to take a landscape to give recognition to whatever we're shooting. This goes under the category of intros. An intro is introduction. And then you go into something called a roll. A roll is the main topic that you want to take. So let's say you're doing interview. That interview, the A roll would be the person who's speaking, the main part, the main story. It gets really boring unless you have a B roll. And a B-roll is something that supplements this A-roll and make you as a viewer engage into some different topic where you see some other stuff, maybe still listening to it, but also see something else. So a cover or a background footage about this story. And at the end, when you want to end your story, you move to the outro. And this is kind of like the intro, but this always should include a conclusion about whatever you have been discussing, you're talking about, you're shooting, something that gives like the purpose of this content that you created or the video you had. So let's get our hands on technicals. I made a video, I recorded it doing it. It's real quick, but instead of going and watching the video, let's go into video editing real quick, technically, with the app that I've mentioned, which is DaVinci Resolve, how to quickly cut and how simple it is compared to how complicated we thought. This is DaVinci Resolve. So we open the app. It's easy as this. We just create a new project. Let's say a new story. Create it. Now we have a project inside the application. It might look scary. I've heard this comment a lot that it's really a lot of functions going on, but you're literally not going to need most of them. So looking at those sections, all what we need is basically 3 maximum, which is the media. Media is where you have what we shot, the photos, the videos we have, whatever we have. Media and cut kind of serve the same purpose, where we have to like see what we have and like do the basic cuts. But we're not going to go through cut because we can do it in edit. So it's kind of like similar process. Edit is where you take action into changing or cutting what you already have. And moving to the end of editing, we go to deliver. Now you might see like, and there's those 3 here. What are they about? Fusion is where you do special effects. Like, you know, when we see in cinema and in Hollywood, they do all this crazy stuff. This goes into fusion. Color is where they do the color grading or color correction into making the video look more cinematic, you know, with the colors of the shadows, highlights, etc. And Fairlight is the section where you can do effects to the audio. We can go to media and let's say, sorry, I had it here. And so here's 3 shots: a B-roll, an interview, or let's say a A-roll or an outro and an outro. You just click them and drag them and throw them here. We have them in the media. Here's the media pool. So you can also drag them from the beginning to this or now. It says change the frame rate. When you open the project, it identifies the settings of the video, let's say when the person shot it. So you can say don't change, because let's say we made it already a full HD. So this videos will fit the full HD properties. And now we have it. We just go and cut it. How? We go to the edit section. There's the media pool. You can see also you can do quick access to the media pool from this part over here and just again drop them into the edit pool, or as we call it, the sequence or the timeline. There's many names to it. It's the same thing. First of all, you want to do the sequence oriented as a story. We said that we start with an intro. So let's say that this is here, the outro. This seems like an ending, and this is the main content. Okay. And this could serve as a B-roll, or it could serve as an intro. Depends how we kind of see it. So let's say that this is a B-roll. This is something that supplements the story. Just dragging them to right next to each other is good enough. We have them ready. This is our sequence. So using Alt and scroll with the mouse makes us zoom in and out to how close we are to this. Let's say this is some shots that I had in Syria, an interview, and this person is speaking. We had a little bit shaking. I don't want this shaking. So I can press on this. It happened from here to here. So we just click and drag. Here is the section we didn't want. Now it's gone. If we look at it, we press play. We're good to go. This seems already good. It could end up here, so I can just close it. And going back to the outro section. Now, this is a shot where there is no movement until all the way in the end, where the birds comes. So this is a good outro to end a shot, let's say. So all this section I don't want, there's no movement in it. I just click on it, drag all the way here until it starts. Again, drag it, and we're good. We got it. This is our video. It's ready, easy as a couple cuts. So what comes into process? Transitioning is something that we see a lot, that you transition from a shot to another. And that is known for us because so many people use an effect called dissolve, where the first image or video dissolves into the second one. So just right click between both shots. When we right click, we have options here, 12 frames, 24 frames, etc. Using 12 or 24. This is a short transition. This is a faster transition. Let's say 12 is perfect. 12 frame equals half a second, by the way. 1 second is basically a 24 frames or 24 images, let's say. The eye of the human being sees them as one shot, but they're actually like 24 separate shots. So adding this cross dissolve, it says that, do you want to cut this half second from the clips to create the transition? We can say yes, trim clips. It's only half a second. It wouldn't affect that much. Looking at it, we have it ready. It transitions this way. Now you can see this layer here. This is the effect, and dragging it, make it smaller, longer, or shorter, depends on how we want, or we can do it in the basically by right click, 12 frames. Let's watch. Voila. So the short movie, let's say, comes to an end, how we end it. This is the outro. Let's do an outro transition. This is going to be more dramatic. Let's say 24 frames outro, and it fades out to black. It fades out to black because there is nothing to fade out to. So this is, we get an ending. You know, as easy as that, we made like a couple clips, cut them real quick, do the transitions. You have a story ready to go. And the more you get in depth into this app, the more you start to learn about the colors. Now, this might look scary a little bit, but this is basically like any other app, as much as intimidating it might seem. There is a shadows and midtones, or like the middle lights, or let's say, and the highlights of an image. By coloring those separately, you get the feel. Or when we swipe on Instagram into filters or or WhatsApp, this is the cinema filters. This is where you create your own filter and just throw it or on the video that you want to make it filterize to make a different feel from that video. But for now, we just want to go to deliver. We have our cuts. We have everything ready. Just by, yeah.
Before you move on to the deliver section, I have a question.
Yeah, sure.
So the outro you meant is like the final shot in the movie, in the whole video is called an what outro?
Yeah. When we go ending the video, we can say that this is the outro after the body of the hero.
Transition effect, different than the within the movie transition effects.
Yeah, I used the same one, but just because there's no footage after it, it goes into black, unlike the other ones where they go into the next shot.
It doesn't have to be that. It's not a cinema protocol, is it?
No, it's not. No, it's basically with movies, you're not limited. You can use so many stuff. You can do any video editing you like. There are some basics, but literally innovation and creativity is up to you to go forward. And this is the most common. This is what we mostly see. So let's say we have our video ready. We just want to export it. We give a file name here. Let's say my story, and just looking at the format. If you use Apple, this is recognizable to QuickTime, but mostly we use MP4. It works everywhere. MP4, just add to render QU, and okay. And now here is the render QU. We just render all, we're done. Wherever we saved it, it's over there right now. Now, that was the basic video editing process where you cut, trim what you want to trim, transition, export. Moving to the other side.
Not the camera pauses strategy to avoid having to edit.
Yeah.
Let's assume the 3 shots you edited were shotted in one scene and one place. It's basically, instead of cutting them and putting them next to each other, you would pause the video and go there and then film, and then pause and then go there and then film.
Yeah, if you want to take different frames and different positions, that you could do that also. And without going into the video editing, if you can do it perfectly at the same right second. But if you miss a second, you should know that you're going to have to go into the trimming process. So you have to be accurate with that. And moving from that, what I was interested about is the phone editing. So I'm not going to be able to do it and show it here. So I did it recording. This is the app that called Filmora Go. This is one of the free apps that goes into both Android and Apple. You choose the shots. Let's say the same example here, 1, 2, 3. You do next. And you already have them in your timeline. If you click on any end of the video or clips or shots, it just make it shorter or longer. And as you see, it transitions as a cut. Here, let's take the shaking part. Easy as that. Comes after. And again, we have the same lengthy video. So just click on it, drag it until where it's good. And look how quick was that using just a phone. So now a transition would come. How you wanna do the transition? And this is a horizontal video, by the way. It's not vertical. This could be like shared on YouTube as a horizontal aspect. Imagine. If you click between them on this white space, you can see all these transition effects. Orbiting, coloring, merging, and splitting. I used the fade or flash. So it flashes into the other one. You also do have the same ones that you have in DaVinci Resolve, what we saw, which is cross dissolve, or they call it fade over there. We're done. Export it, and you have it on your phone. ready to share. That was like literally what, 1 minute, 30 seconds. You trim 3 shots and you just export them. So now we know how to shoot and how to edit it. Let's go into the also one of the most important steps, which is how to target. We have the content ready. We have what we want. We have our story. How to target it to communities, how to target it to places. So targeting, or I don't know, some people might call it marketing, targeting, whatever that gets your story out there, whatever you have to do. There's so many ways. So first of all, you have to recognize the importance of your story. What is it beneficial for? What is it highlighting? And basically, whatever it does, highlighting or creating exposure to, knowing the importance of story allows you to start setting the environment or the targeted environment and the social community you want to target. So let's say I'm a filmmaker. I'm interested in filmmaking, in videography, cinematography, and all this stuff. I slowly start to build up a story and a reputation and a portfolio. I've done what I have to do from practicing, and now I have a story and events that I had. Targeting this is by going to the film industry, filmmakers, cinematographers, maybe journalists, and so on and so forth. Everybody that might be a social community related to my story. Now, here when we start targeting them, first of all, you start the interacting process. Whatever we do, like a normal sharing, commenting, and liking. In my experience, in 2014, I came to Turkey and I literally had no idea what to do. Like, literally just distracted. I have a lot of experience working on humanitarian field organizations, stuff like that. So I was wondering, why not reaching out on Facebook? It was the most common back then. So I decided to go search, a quick search, maybe 5 minutes. I find a couple people who work in a similar niche, and they are linked to like businesses that I know their titles or organizations that I'm familiar with. So I decided like let's talk to them. Maybe we can link and do something with it, and I can start to creating my environment in Turkey. For example, doing a business and getting to know friends. When you're all alone, it's hard to figure where you're going from there. By just communicating on Facebook, I had a person, we communicated about working together. She apologized. She said, I'm all the way in Africa and we're doing our projects over there. Well, I'm really glad that you messaged and I'm happy to hear about this. And who knows, maybe in the future we can collaborate on something if I get close to your region. 2 years from there, I haven't expected to hear back from this person. 2 years after like 5 minute chat, she messages me again and saying like, hey, Hussein, we talked one day and you said you're in Turkey, in Istanbul. Actually, I'm moving to that area and that region. I'm wondering if you know someone who knows Arabic. I was like, yes, I am myself. And what is it for? And she said like, maybe you can give me lessons. I'm moving to Lebanon afterwards and I need some basic Arabic stuff to be qualified. I said, yeah, for sure. So a comment took us to a language education. And from language education, I realized that her work is recently being built around something like artificial intelligence and data recognition, let's say. So she's good at the technical stuff, but I realized that they lack the designs, they lack the videos, the materials that promotes them. And I was like, let's maybe collaborate on doing this. And we did. She said, yeah, absolutely. Let's try it out. We did. We did some videos, we did some designs, we started working on it. They get impressed, they like the stuff, and then it grew. The company 1 year later got sold, another one was opened. I worked a little bit for it. From that work, I got recognized into more and more interesting people that have bigger and bigger projects, and slowly start getting from there. One environment opened up dozens. And all this, looking at it, they call it the butterfly effect, where one little thing might circle your life up all over by just a simple action. And that starts sometimes with a like, a share, or a comment. Now, I really had the experience of it. Moving forward in reaching out, there is actually, when you have the material set up, when you have your portfolio, you can start reaching out and doing proposals. So The proposal section is you have to identify what's missing in some place. Let's say you've seen something and you recognize a missing factor that you might be a good fit to fill it, or your content might be good for it, or your skills. Just proposals by reaching out on social media. And interesting story that happened to me also on this aspect is a company called Blocktopia. This is an industry in virtual reality gaming. They do virtual reality video games, really, really futuristic. They just started like 1 week ago. I was really interested because they're building a freelance communities into their own gaming industry. And the gaming industry is built on virtual reality. So it's really futuristic and interesting concept of playing and working using virtual reality at the same time. And I went to check further and further, and I found their page where they have one post on LinkedIn, and the person who's doing this project, he's so busy that he has zero social exposure. His account is empty. It's literally empty. And he's teaming up with one of the guys called Simon. They worked for PlayStation company for 25 years, like a really big names, but they have zero interest whatsoever in going into the visual presentation of themselves. They just have the experience over the years working in really good places. So I said, why not reach out to them? Like, I'm really interested in this. I can offer so many, and I'm really interested in their project. Sometimes being in an environment is more important than doing the job that you're talking about, or the project you're talking about. And I did. I never expected that they would respond, like such people. But from one message, you get a response, and they're really interested, and they really liked how I'm like putting at least some efforts to enhance the project by having a visual identity for it. And the communication kept going and going until it started to get serious. And once it gets there, you start to get to be a part of their environment and more to come. It always rolls over like a snowball effect, Taking action, everybody says that it's really important, but it might really be as easy as you can imagine, but you decide to skip it. Not skipping it might change your life. That's from my experience and my story. And collaborating on mutual interests is also something really important when you target an environment, when you want to target to put your work out there. Moving forward.
Interesting, actually. This is how most opportunities are built.
Yeah.
You know how like big companies that capitalize on people job hunting. So they're like, oh, give us your resume. We will look for a job for you. And you end up like applying for 350 jobs and you get one at 350. And on average, people spend like a month and a half looking for an opportunity. When the data shows that like more than 80% of people get their jobs from like word of mouth. Someone tells someone else, and it's like, hey, I know this. It's about like just talking about it. Like you go to someone, you're like, hey, I know you need me, and I want this job. Let's talk about it. This is way easier for like even you. Like think about it. If someone comes to you and he's like, I know what you need, and I think I can help you, you would feel more comfortable than having to look for someone and explain to them how you think they are a good fit for you. It's interesting, actually.
Same goes with collaboration. If I find that we might be beneficial together to create an idea, just giving you this idea might get you there by collaborating about it. And basically, my study in Turkey was journalism, as interesting as it might seem to my interests. And during that study, what I recognized is that media is always in a hunger state for more news, more stuff, more content to cover. They're always in shortage. They always want more. And when you say it to the public, whenever you say that TV and like the newspapers, it's still the same mindset as the old times. Like in order to be on TV, in order to be on some newspaper, you must be some miraculous Superman or whatever kind of hero. Luckily, it's not like this anymore. There is so much need to cover so many stories, and people don't know this. They don't know that media is really in need all the time. So they hesitate looking at this You can reach out to a local media agency, a news agency. You can reach out to journalists around you. Maybe a friend you might know who studied it. Maybe someone who's doing it. Maybe someone you have a social presence in your region on Instagram or something. New media. New media is basically whatever TV shows that you see on TV or newspapers. They have a section called new media where they put everything again into social media and like more visual and websites and blogs and so on and so forth. So reaching out to those who might be interested to what you're doing and using their presence online or on TV or on papers, giving them your story, they would most likely be accepting to take it. And it's fast and easy and like even free. Like they would be thanking you to give them your story so they spread it for you. What else do you want more than this? Is free marketing, let's say. This is one way. So this is something that people skip mostly and like don't take into consideration just because how we have a stereotype about media and news and like local media agencies in particular. Yeah, that was the keys that I really see the most important in targeting. Let's say you have something important that you want to make people hear about or you want to people see. What do you normally do? Also maybe share experience about this, those urgent cases where you really need to show up and say like, hey people, this is happening. What would possibly be methods that you take into this process?
We have from my experience, I made a little documentary with my friend, and we both came from a photography background, meaning that we had no idea how to even like edit them.
Yeah.
So you can imagine the quality of the documentary we made. It was just bad, but I think people were very interested in the idea and the story. And the story was amazing. And so we made it, we succeeded, but we didn't have any like a platform to display all that. So after we finished editing and we wanted to make the finals kind of the, what do you call it, the premiere screening, we made a big fuss about it on Facebook and invited all our friends and networks. And it's funny, I don't know, it's funny how social media worked, but it became this big thing. Also, we asked a friend at the university to host us. So the whole thing looked like professional. And somehow the TV heard about this and 2 TV channels came. And I was like, oh, this is big. And that's when I got to understand that these guys work the way these guys work. And I don't want to say this, but they don't really care about the story. They're paid to make a report about something. So they're looking for something.
Exactly.
And we were just thinking that like, if we had like anyone who has anything, a movie, a video, anything, and then he has like a crowd of 50 people gathering at a place, can probably convince the media to cover them because they just want something. They just want anything to talk about.
True. Yeah.
It's interesting, but it started from our like closed circle, and eventually we got to do screenings in like 15 countries or something. It was it was a surreal experience. That's when I first realized how kind of connected like media makes the world. Yeah.
It's just getting into being connected. Once your story reach out someplace, another place is gonna come and adopt the story, and this is how influence goes on and on. It's just by something getting more popular and popular because of people who are adopting the same story. So once someone adopted it, it's just on. It's for the long run. As in conclusion, we kind of end up having the last points, and here is something I found really important, that your past shapes your future. Everything what we're going to be facing tomorrow is just built up on what we did yesterday. That is going to be the factors that shapes our future. So why not always take action? Why not always immediately move to action and start doing what we want to do instead of overthinking about it and de-evaluate it and think about it, this is not enough. Nothing needs anything than just starting. Maybe those steps might be really helpful even to make it more successful into spreading, into becoming active stories instead of passive stories.
Your readings should be public because they talk about who you are. Your hobbies also talk about who you are, like everything, your thoughts, your writings, it all shapes, your personality. And you never know like the thing that you can drive your main story from, because nobody knows what they want to do in life. Nobody, literally. Like I'd say the majority, if doctors studied 11 years, they probably know what they want to do. But a lot of people end up doing something other than
What they
what they
expected.
it's yeah.
I'm kind of working in education at the university, and I work with bachelor students and some master students as well. So I'm kind of this generation where not so much into social media, but recognize that this is a kind of a necessity, right? That I have to kind of evolve with it, and also connect and relate to the students as well. And I'm a geographer, and I think we look at the environment around us, whether it be the physical, the environment in a traditional way, and the social as well. And I really want to be able to have the students, use other resources and ways to look at the world and place around them. And because we're in Germany, there's a lot of things happening, and there's a lot of questions I think that they could ask just within their local communities. And I would like for them to kind of connect to those things as well. And I think this might be a way for them to kind of maybe understand the world around them, that it's not quite the same. Like I was participating in a training this morning on gender and digital communication, and it was with other German undergraduate students. And what was interesting is that they didn't understand how the digital communication, the discourse was playing out in the US. Like they didn't understand these different positionalities. And to me, it was kind of obvious, right? You have different culture, you have different context, you have different conflicts. You have all these things interplaying, right? Like that are affecting people, and this digital communication then becomes this platform where people feel that that's where the change can happen, right? Where they can talk about these issues in a way, whereas the German students were saying, well, we don't understand why it has to be so extreme, right? Like why are these polarities? And to me, it's like, well, maybe this is the place where this generation feels that this is where the change is going to be. I don't always agree with kind of the approaches, but I mean, for me, myself, I'm a child of an interracial marriage. So like my parents moved to the States when my dad's from Iran, and they moved during the revolution. And so for me, like everything is always not black nor white. So I always see things from like this like multiple perspective. And I think that really is such an influence on me to recognize that there's multiple realities, right? And that we shouldn't put this paradox of wrong or right or good or bad on it. And I think there needs to be a space where we think about these things. And culture is such an integral part of our identity. And I think maybe we're not conscious of that. And I think maybe want to get my students is to see how much culture really plays into a lot of political decisions that are being made, global economy situations that are happening. Like I remember doing field work in India, and I remember sitting down with bachelor students there, and they said, oh, well, here's a social technical solution. We can just have people in this rural village in India just do this. And I was like, oh, how's that going to work when the average household doesn't have access to, electricity, or like it wasn't a social technological solution that worked. And they're like, oh, I didn't think about that. Yeah. And so I think that's the challenge, is when you have privilege that you don't understand
the very basics.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's hard for them to relate to that because they don't have those struggles, and they don't know what it's like. I mean, I have family, that's whether they're in Turkey or they're in India, I have family, or Canada, like everyone kind of has their story, right? And I think those realities are still like, it's their reality, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. And I think that's where I struggle in education, is to find a way to bring those realities to people who don't have those experiences and that culture, and for them to understand that. And yeah, so I find that kind of really like something right now that I'm really trying to work on in education, is understanding this element, this dynamic of culture, and how it shapes identities, and how it really shapes the places that we live and what's happening, even if it's not affecting us, right? Like in our community, it could be affecting someone somewhere else, but we're still interconnected, and then for them to find that as well is really important to me.
Yeah. So my comment on this is I've experienced this myself, and when you related it to the culture or to the place that you're in, it's really important, because I could have recognized this pattern changing within myself, moving from place to another. So going out of the environment I used to be in Syria, I had a certain characteristic or a certain path that I used to take over according to what I'm seeing around me and adapting to. Moving from there, I've settled in Lebanon for a while. And being in Lebanon and going into that process of being in that country with a different perspective of life, and then moving to Turkey where you have both, and you can do this or that, and shifting the entire communication strategy or the approach that you're using suddenly to something all new, that shifted again my interests and again what I'm looking for and what I expected. So I found that cultural location is related today to the internet for a reason. Internet hasn't been ever similar to a cultural location where you're living in, like actually physically. But because of the high usage of these social media platforms, and that we are connecting to the same spot and the same platform from the entire world into people, like we showed in some figures, people we haven't probably knew their names, but ask anybody in China, ask anybody in Syria, in Turkey, in Africa, wherever you ask, they might recognize those people, and they like them for the same reason, and they think about them the same way. As you mentioned, there is no absolute truth, or there is no absolute reality or false or true about something. There's multiple paradoxes about how we perceive reality, how we perceive the right and wrong. And yeah, unfortunately, sometimes what's right for us might be wrong for others. And here where we start to conflict big time. Good explanation would help. Sometimes the explanation of why we thinking this is right or wrong is not good enough. I think about movies, I think about videos, podcasts, interviews.
I grew up in that generation where, like, I remember being a kid, and it was like, oh, you know, like the problems, like whether it be like in Iran or like Israel, or oh, food is like the thing. Like, so it was either sport or like food, like football or food. And I feel like the new generation, like, it's not so much about the consumption of those two things anymore. It's about the production of those things, whether someone's creating a food blog or doing, you know, social media and saying, oh, I'm traveling to these places. So I think their discourse is different compared to other generations. And I think I always find that it's better if you can create your own individual experiences to connect with another person or another situation. So this is where I think maybe digital kind of method, so to say, is a way to get them to embed themselves into the environment, to the community. And then, but because you're also confronting identities, right? Let's say you're doing an interview. Let's say you want to interview, because, you know, in Germany, there's also this like kind of internal question of the Turkish communities, right? Like in every major German city. So one way, like, to get them to feel comfortable with maybe interviewing is like, you know, I'm doing this project for the university. This is what I'm supposed to do. This is what my professor says. This is my requirement. Here's my video. Here's my list of questions. And it gives them an identity that they don't have to like have that awkwardness and uncomfortableness, and then have something to share. And then, so I'm trying to look at it as ways is where it doesn't challenge too much of their identity, where they resist the idea of you know, asking hard questions, a gentle way of diving into a problem. And I think COVID creates another layer of, okay, well, we're having to work more digitally, and I think there's things in our own communities that we can ask. Like you don't have to go that far to find kind of issues that you can address, right? Like I think Muslim related community questions are really prime on political like storylines, right? I think it's in every continent. So I think you can find a community with a mosque or whatever, and you can go in and you can sit down and like have them ask these type of questions.
Yeah.
I think it's awesome that you're tackling such an issue as a person who is not a fan of media. Like I like that.
I'm not. I'm really not.
I understand, but I think my problem with that is that I think the term social media is being abused by these big social media players.
Companies.
Because only thinking about Facebook and Instagram, and it bothers me that TikTok like was bombarded in like 1 month. Waves of teenagers started creating ridiculous dances trends, and like it was a thing. And this is not social, like this should not be what social media is and how social media is defined. And I think the goal now is to get these teenagers exploring what's beyond all this. And these big like social media corps are forcing social standard on these teenagers. And I don't believe that the majority of the guys enjoy creating, like TikTok-like videos, but they know that they should because their friends do it all the time. And if you want to be relevant to your high school friends or class friends, you probably should jump on the trend. And there's not enough time spent on telling these guys there's a whole different tool than what you know of the internet.
Well, guys, thanks a lot. First of all, thanks a lot, Hüseyin, for the training. Well, my contribution would be a completely, let's say, private contribution about like video and social media. Well, I have worked in corporate companies, I think around 8 years, and it was between 2008 and 2015. And I remember that actually starting as of 2010, we even wanted to have something virtually as a presentation when we were executing our daily activities. We were running a new software, for example, for some specific type of marketing people. And instead of making the, let's say, introduction face-to-face or with the groups, what we came up with at that time, like, okay, let's work with some kind of video producers, especially the ones who are still university students in the city where I was living, and I still live in Eindhoven, Netherlands. So they created a kind of a promo or a presentation video for us for this specific software. Then we could actually send to all product managers or all the marketing related people one email, and we were like asking if you have some questions, come to us, and that really speeded up the procedure. I remember distinctly actually that people were also much more comfortable when they saw something like visually.
True.
And that they could follow it for 3 or 4 minutes, and they were like, okay, this is good. Because I mean, if you don't do that, you have to invite them, and of course all the people in the corporate life, they are extremely busy, they always reject your meetings, blah blah. So that could cause a very long path. And instead of that, actually, when we did this, we really kind of benefited from it. So I find it extremely important. And as I told you, these were the 2010s. So let's say visual things were not that as important or easy as
today.
Yeah, and my second experience was like when I was working also in Greece for a non-governmental organization who was developing projects for refugees and asylum seekers. We actually understood also not maybe providing them a service visually, but the visual things are the most important things between them. True. Because they would like to communicate as easy as possible. They would like to see the faces of their friends or relatives or the people who are far away. I mean, the thing is, when you are providing some projects which will make their life easier with like visuals, or they directly dive into it, because this is a very effective way of making people a little bit happier.
Yeah, and more related to what they're
Yeah,
seeing. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So I think this is, but I mean, apart from all these discussions, like what you said about the social media, about the young people's uh, behavior regarding the visuals or the everything is, I completely agree. And I think this is a very complicated field because I think their attention span is now only 2 minutes
Yeah.
for each display or whatever. So it goes through another discussion. But what I experienced from my experiences, business experiences, it was always an effective way to communicate people. And
Yeah.
if, personally, I am also into making that kind of small amateur YouTube videos because now I live in Eindhoven, which is not a very famous city as Amsterdam or Rotterdam. So I try to contribute, I try to produce actually small introduction movies introducing the area, why it is important, the neighborhoods of the city, because some
Yeah.
people also tend to come here, and I can get, even though they are not watched like, you know, thousands or whatever, I really get some nice emails from people like, oh, this video was very, you know, useful.
Informative.
Yeah, thanks for the help, and you know, I didn't know anything about this neighborhood, but now you showed me with your own words or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I'm also kind of enjoying it personally.
It's really interesting. Yeah. I'm sure that you made up a lot of contacts, even from this, knowing more people, like expanding your environment.
Yeah.
It opens new
Despite the
opportunities.
amount of traffic you get, no content is not important. Like as you're saying, even little village people might be interested in. They must be able to find, you know, info about that.
Something
And if
about
there's,
it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I just want to remind everyone that Virtual Stories Berlin has to support that, support the artists and storytelling. There are a competition and an exhibition. You can head to our website to see, submit your art, your stories in any form you want. There's also a competition you can participate in for a chance to win a prize. You should find all the information on our website.
Yeah.
Other than that, thank you all for coming. Hassouna, thank you so
You're
much.
most welcome.